Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Velocity Kinetics. It's the 22nd of February. Apologies if I occasionally rub the side of my face. I've had a horrible toothache for a couple of weeks and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something stuck and it's just a pressure thing, or whether I've been told I need wisdom teeth out, and might be that this is now gone beyond what my body has deemed acceptable and feels that it needs to be done at a rather inconvenient time. Now, today, before we even go anywhere, you'll have noticed my surroundings are different. We are in my Volvo. So the Civic's gone. There is a video half recorded currently and it's half edited. Whether I'll actually put it out, I don't know. It'll come out after this if it comes out at all. Where I've gone through the reasoning behind why the Civic's gone and landing on this. I'm going to try not to talk too much about what the car is like to drive, for the most part, because that doesn't... I'm going to do a separate video anyway about reviewing this car. There'll be a separate video reviewing this car anyway, but... it's not what I'm wanting to discuss today. It's been weird getting used to a manual again though, and I will say, like I said, I don't plan to review this car, but if my brain and mouth head off in that direction, or if the brain's headed off before the mouth realises, or the mouth's headed off before the brain realises, I apologise in advance. But it is sort of relating to this car. That don't sound good. It is sort of relating to this car, though, as to what I want to discuss. As you probably saw when I was trying to start it up, for some reason I still cannot wrap my head around the fact that it's a neutral switch, clutch in, and that I've got to physically put the key in, because I've gotten used to the keyless go that the Civic had, and the keyless entry as well. But it has made me realise, picking this up, that I do begin to think, and this conversation is also informed by what I was discussing with my parents yesterday when I saw them. My dad's a Volvo man. Whilst he's had Fords in the past, I'd say 90% of the cars he's had in my life have been Volvo. And if you include the one occasion he had Peugeot as a courtesy car, well and truly is 90% at least have been Volvo. So I went over to Thetford, showed them around this, and my dad was talking about something that the dealer at Holden Volvo in Bury St Edmunds, a guy called Tom Crawford, very knowledgeable man. Hello Tom, if you're watching. Yes, I am that same child that apparently used to put the fear into all of you salesmen years ago. Allegedly, I don't know whether I did or didn't. I just liked Volvo. Forgive a child for having an interest. But something Tom Crawford had said, that a lot of people find that some manufacturers, like Kia for example, are too techy for their own good. And when I had a look at a Nero myself again recently, I sort of can see what my parents meant, because it was just screens everywhere, and even the Sportage was a bit screeny as well. But he reckoned that because of age, a lot of older people whose skin's starting to break down or dry up, whatever is the correct description for what is happening, without just blatantly labelling it as, well, you're getting old. That's a bit unfair. People don't ask to get old, much like in the same way they don't ask to be born. But it's also, that conversation with my dad has made me realise that actually, you know what? I do love Miss Swace. I did love that Civic, up until I couldn't trust it anymore. But maybe things are too techy for their own good. And I did do a video about this years ago when I still lived in Risby and I had the white Baleno. So we're talking, it's got to be 4+ years ago, because I'm stood at the side of the car. I think it's a We Answer video, our car's too techy for their own good. And even back then the thought was, well, kinda, but that was just a very uninformed opinion piece. not based in any real foundation apart from what was available through things like Top Gear magazines and what the hell are you doing in the left lane to turn right, you absolute spanner. But yeah, it's got me realising that I think some cars are a little too clever for their own good. Even simple things like having a physical handbrake. This car's got one, unfortunately, with the positioning of it in this Volvo, and I will discuss it more when I do the review video, but suffice it to say, if you're consenting adults, it's kind of funny to be eternally rubbing up the other person's knee when you need the handbrake on and off. If you're just taking a mate to work, it's not perhaps the most ideally placed. But like my Swace electronic handbrake that goes on when it shove it into park, a Civic, I believe in theory, had the same. At least it was an electronic handbrake, even if there was no way to do it when you put it into park. The CVT within them, even though CVT is actually quite an old thing. Effectively, it goes back to, at least from what I understand when I've been reading about it, traction engine sort of worked on a similar thing when they were powering the threshing machines. It's 2 cogs and a belt, and they vary the tension to change the speed. It's effectively what a CVT gearbox is, 2 props and a belt. But again, maybe too clever for themselves. All this electronics, I mean, I do still use the speed limiter in this because it's a bigger engine than I've had. But even to a point, I'm a very big advocate for the 3-cylinder 1-litre turbo engines. It's a fantastic piece of engineering. They prove you don't need massive displacement motors. But again, there's also a case of, yeah, but they started to get a bit complicated and made into the hybrid, getting complicated, and so on. And also I've not, the Honda had I think in Volvo language it's called Bliss. I don't know what it's called in Honda language, but effectively most manufacturers have got their own version. Blind spot indication, I think maybe they all use Bliss, I don't know. Blind spot indication system, I do believe it stands for. And it made me realise that when I was coming on to things like the A14 and the Honda, yeah, I did still look, but I was mainly just looking for an orange light to tell me there was something in the blind spot. I wasn't always confirming that there was nothing there. Because it's ultimately a computer. It boils down to GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as it's programmed, and the programming is only as it's a cycle. The hardware is only as good as it's programmed. The program can only work to the limitations of the hardware, and so on and so on. But it's made me realise that actually, you know what? I know a lot of dash cam videos and things show people as very impatient drivers and very angry drivers these days, and just in general, well, the quality of driving, the standard of driving is just declining in the UK. But I think that's just a UK problem. Well, not just a UK problem, I think that's a problem born out of COVID and people's attention spans being absolutely destroyed. But I do also think that cars are making people just more lazy, and I don't just mean popping in them to go to the shops when you could walk and so on, because you could use the same argument, why don't you just get the bus for people who live a bit further out? And it's not an invalid argument, but I mean as in all these things, like this car hasn't got, for instance, this hasn't got radar guided cruise control, and it hasn't got lane assist. So I've noticed when I've been on the A14 a little bit, I feel like I'm working harder to keep it in lane. But actually, thinking about it, my Swift never had lane assist because it was just it was an SZ2, i.e. as basic as they came. My Balenos, even though they were SZTs, so actually had a lot more on them than the eventual SZ3 that came out, but a bit less than the SZ5, I thought nothing of it. But when I got the Swace, which had the lane assistance, whilst I do turn its most aggressive form off, it still keeps me in line, keeps me in check. So I'm dodging all sorts of potholes at the moment. It keeps me in line, it keeps me in check, and sometimes it doesn't make me feel like I'm going ping, 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 ping. And it is something I do sort of turn back on when the Swace turns it off, but I suppose it's because I've gotten so used to it keeping me straight, I'm not actually doing enough input. And it was the same with the Honda. The Honda had a lane guidance system, and again, not through me wanting to be lazy or actually being lazy, I just relied on it. Even in the gearbox's manual mode that Honda had, even though it had seven gears and it would eventually shift down anyway, if I forgot to shift down, it also would shift up. It wouldn't just sit there, so I could accidentally put it in manual and be none the wiser. It would just be like, well, that's revving a bit more than it should be. And that's about it, because I'll be honest, I did that once. But that's revving a lot. Why is it not shifting? And it turned out I had it in sport. Not a problem, just sort of a oh damn situation. So it's come around there a bit quick, Mr. Jag. It's alright, he's got a Jag. A cyclist. Another Jag. It's a solid white line anyway. I can't get round them. Bad choice on my part. I really shouldn't have done that. Probably going to put a dashcam YouTube channel for that. But they had indicated for me to go by. What do you do when someone's doing it for telling you to do so? It's awkward. But sometimes also when I watch some of these YouTube channels with the dashcam videos, you do sometimes see some of the most silly mistakes, and it's probably people who have either had all the electronic gizmos. I can't believe more a case of I've refused to believe some people are so pig ignorant that they forget to hit the brakes, forget to do this, forget to do that. Ooh, looks like church is kicked out. I've refused to believe some people are so pig ignorant that they forget to hit the brakes, they forget to stop in time, they forget to do, whatever, everything. Basically, I refuse to believe people are that ignorant, or at least ignorant in the volumes that those dashcam channels seem to suggest. It is, because if you take them at their word, then that would suggest it's at endemic levels. This ignorance. But I find myself in the little bit of time that since I've bought the Volvo, and it's not just because it's a Volvo. It's a V40 and bits aren't as readily available as they used to be. I'm not checking everything more because I should, if that makes sense. I'm checking everything more because I haven't got the electronics to back me up, which shows that just how much someone who prides themselves on being, well, is pride myself the right way to describe it? I'm not sure, but someone who is not a fan of all sorts of electronic driving interventions, unless it's for safety for not safety for safety's sake, but actual genuine safety. I struggle to believe. Well, I don't struggle to believe because it happened. So of course I do believe it. It hurts my brain to realise that actually, yeah, I had become that reliant on all the systems. I wasn't checking everything as often as I should do. I wasn't that I wasn't being as vigilant as you need to be. I think I would like to think I had more vigilance than most, was being more vigilant than most, but I would also think that but by that same measure, I was not being as vigilant as you are supposed to be. That is just a natural fact. That is a given fact. So I remember, but not long before I went on did my driving test, some of it might simply be old muscle memory kicking back in. So I remember that I did a shift when I was in the police special with a guy called Doc. He was a qualified driving instructor, and he taught his was it his actual daughter, or was it a foster daughter? I don't remember. Either way, well, daughter is a daughter. But he was like, every little thing you do, you need to make sure you check in your mirror. Check your mirror before you change gear, check your mirror as you change gear, check your mirror after you changed gear. He gave me quite a funny... it stuck with me, and I believe it's one of the things that got me through that fourth and final test. But the constant need to check, the constant vigilance required, that actually an automatic and a lot of extra technology takes away from. Now, yes, I have criticised Auto Alex and similar YouTube channels for getting all, modern cars are shit, bring back the old stuff, and I do still stand by that, because I'm not saying go for shit boxes, because the trade-off is all this extra tech. A driver like Sarah, who's not the most confident of drivers, that gives her an extra safety net. It gets her a little bit out of her head. And other people who've got anxiety around driving, it does ease a little bit of that anxiety. It does make life that tiny bit easier. It does make the little alarm in the back of your head switch off a little bit. And I completely get it, because I'm someone with anxiety myself. Not over driving unless it's somewhere I've never been and I've got to park somewhere that I can't double check on Street View and things like that before I even go there. I haven't just got general being on the roads anxiety. Now, previously in my Civic, I'd have seen that gap and just might have checked it once or twice and just buried it and gone. Where was I? So yeah, I'm not saying everyone needs to. I'm not saying bring back the shit box, but maybe manufacturers perhaps need to consider maybe we're babying people too much when it comes to everything that's on cars now. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some things. One man's chalk's another man's cheese. One person might say, well, if you can't handle putting your seat in position on ratchets, on the normal runners and things, and the electric seat, then you shouldn't be driving. I happen to disagree with that. Some people would say electric tailgates are pointless, and I blow hot and cold on them because it depends on the vehicle. If you've got a saloon, you don't need an electric tailgate on a saloon, or electric bootleg, whatever you want to call it. You just don't. Big estates, big SUVs, even though I don't like SUVs, I can recognise it, or things like the Vauxhall Zafira back in the past. I don't think they actually came with an electric tailgate, but there was quite a big expanse that was open, if that makes sense. Oh, daffodils. They're out early. Lovely. I've also, this is something that's just to sidetrack a bit. What is lovely about driving around some UK country roads at this time of year, as spring's starting to come, I don't know whether we're actually in spring or whether we're being lulled into a false sense of security, because let's be honest, climate change, I would say in the UK for the very least, because obviously I haven't been abroad or lived abroad to confirm it. But I'd say the last few years, it's noticeable the weather is different in the UK, and it's not like it's a little blip. Summers are hotter. Spring gets warm a lot earlier. Sometimes we go cold at the wrong time of year. Granted, I know sometimes you can have quite cold Aprils, and there've been years where there's been frosts into May. So it's not uncommon. But normally, this time of year, whoa, that's a big pothole. Normally, this time of year, when Sarah was driving, I was getting up every day. Now, I still do get up every day to double check. But I think you can count, considering she works 3 to 4 days a week, I think you can every week, I think you can only count 10, 11 times that I have had to get out and de-ice her car, and that's including when we had snow within that, which is, frankly, in my opinion, a bit batshit. So I'm just heading a direction to. I'm gonna see how this car likes the roads, where I normally would test a car like this, where I tested the Civic. Where we've got the intro slate, the same road where the intro slate is filmed, but also just to see how potholed they are. But anyway, we'll get. I've wandered off on a wandered off. But anyway, this time of year in the UK, it's lovely to see daffodils down all the sides of the country roads. It's something so uniquely British about it. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it being a bit not quite blue in the sky, not summer blue, sort of that dirty grey blue, bit of mud on the road from the rains, and the muddy grass as well, because it might have rained a little too much, and then boom, you've got this beautiful yellow. I don't like yellow very much, but there's something about daffodils, and pansies actually, but something about daffodils on the side of the road, just perfecto. It's a perfecto, in my opinion. This don't look good. Yeah, the sides of this road aren't very good at all. Right, let's just chuck it in the 5th. I don't think I'm going to get much. I don't want to go much faster than 40 because there's been big vehicles dragging into the sides on here. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some additional safety features that are fantastic. Sometimes when I've had to do near emergency stops on the motorway or dual carriageway, reaching for your hazard warning light, as you're supposed to, or try to, I think it's worded in the highway code, to try and warn people that you're having to do an unexpected stop. That is sometimes very difficult, especially if you're trying to keep a car going straight, like when I nearly rear-ended someone on the M25 because they decided to do an emergency stop because they missed their exit. That was very difficult. I wouldn't have been able to reach to do it, and because of how hard I was braking and how locked in position the seatbelt's locked, well, I couldn't reach to do it. So systems like what the Civic had, when you brake over a certain amount or put pressure down a certain amount, the hazard's flashing on. Fantastic idea. That's not being lazy. That is pure scientific efficiency. But keeping in lane assistance, all I think some of this technology encourages is people to drive longer than their limits. It encourages people to ignore what their limits are. And much like I would say at the gym, where you need to recognise your limits, and this is coming from someone who goes to the gym, makes themselves do things that puts them out of their comfort zone at the gym, but knowing at the same time where that limit is also very important. I know when I go up to Newcastle, I can do it in one stop on a good day. I can normally do it with a stop either at Grantham or at Wetherby, and then I can get there. If I must. I actually prefer a quick stop in Grantham and at Wetherby. If nothing else, because after Wetherby, that stretch of the A1 between Wetherby and Newcastle, oh, it is such... I can't put my finger on it, but it's such a bloody slog. I don't know what it is. I think it's... Sarah thinks it's because when they've redone all the A1, they've straightened the road out and things. They've taken away a lot of the things... It sounds horrible to say that, taking away a lot of things to look at, because it implies you're not paying attention. But I think I get what she means, is the scenery doesn't change. So part of your brain is like, well, are we moving? Which then also makes it harder to believe as a passenger. And if when she does fall asleep, which is inevitable, it's usually on that stretch of road. So yeah, if I had, I'm not against cars being comfortable. Before you confuse this, are we too reliant on stuff for? Yeah, but some of this is just comfort. Don't get me wrong, cars being comfortable, very important. Whether that's your pack or what, don't know what that was, but don't see whatever that was every day. I'm not against cars being comfortable at all. Far, far, far from it. Right. As I recall, there's usually a big puddle around this corner in Cavenham. Oh no! Someone been through that wall. Sorry, there's a lovely... You might see it when I turn around. There's a massive hole in a wall that looks like a vehicle's been through it. Such a shame. But yeah, there is a fine line between babying people in the car as a babying drivers, and it being safe. And I think if a lot of people were suddenly handed the keys to something like an SZ2 Suzuki from the same Suzuki I had, I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to manage. And this isn't just most people drive an automatic now. That's not a criticism either, because if it's cheaper to buy an automatic, I'm going to buy an automatic. I am not going to pay through the nose just to be able to say I've got a manual. He sort of forced my hand. Didn't want to come out here. No one. Right. Go back to where we came. But also people seem to think all the electronic aids will save them, and it's like the electronic aids won't save you. They won't save you if you're being a twit. All they do is help you stay in place a tiny bit more. They decrease the size of the accident that you're going to have. If you didn't have them, like if you watch some videos of like when Nürburgring videos when someone's taking a Tesla around and then the Tesla starts getting a tank slapper on, the electronics are trying to keep it in a straight line. as it battles with physics and the sheer weight of the car to stop it going round. But imagine if that had just done a complete snap oversteer and no electronics kicked in. So this is what I meant a few minutes ago when our brain and mouth went off in another direction about electronics keeping people in check and keeping, you know, keeping people driving beyond what their skill limits are. See that old-fashioned car again? No, it's a boasty, isn't it? Yeah, so that's sort of what I want. What I mean. Driving this is sort of maybe this is sort of also part of the point why I can't really land what I want to say properly. It's made me realise that, yeah, actually, I had become a bit of a lazy driver. I had become one of those people who didn't check as often as they should. I checked more than most people do. You've witnessed something there I don't normally do in a manual. Skipped a gear on the way down. Very rarely do that. Usually, especially in this with being 6, I always come back through, even if I'm briefly in each gear for this is the wall. God. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't think I was a lazy driver by any stretch of the imagination. I think Sarah would have kicked my arse if she thought that's what I was becoming. Because she's always said she feels very safe with me as a driver, even when I do decide I'm going to give it a bootful. But like I said, it does make me realise that I didn't. Even simple things like I got into the habit. Before I passed my driving test, I got into the habit of physically moving my head all the time to check my mirrors, just like I've just done there as a deliberate, well, one I needed to check anyway, but 2 as a deliberate demonstration. And I just reverted to a flick. In recent months, I just reverted to flicking my eyes, like I've just done there and there, which isn't wrong, because you've checked. But also for passengers, sometimes it's not very reassuring when the driver doesn't do it. Because I've noticed this sometimes with Sarah. She will sometimes, I'm sure she's checking behind her, but sometimes when I'm a passenger with her, she looks like she's driving blinkers on, not aware of her surroundings, and when suddenly she needs to be aware, she's not. That's what it feels like from that seat, from the passenger seat. Pretty sure it isn't actually what's going on in the driver's seat, but because you've got all these aids to help you, you very quickly become complacent. I'm not sure I'm going to chance that road. Down this one. You can very quickly become complacent. You can very quickly rely too much. That wasn't me missing a gear, that was nearly me putting it back into 6th when I wanted 4th. You can very quickly become complacent and lethargic, lazy, and just about any other adjective you can think to throw at the situation. That's a lot of offlow from the fields. Even what I'm doing just now, where I've gone through quite a big puddle where the road's flooded, a lot of people just barrel through it, thinking they've got a modern car, it'll be fine. Like, well, actually no. Especially if you watch a lot of videos like it, is it Rufford Ford? I'm trying to think of the YouTube. Is Gregor's. I watch a lot of his videos retrieving cars that have been, through Fords and things that they shouldn't have gone through. People just think the technology is going to save them. And I suppose, yes, the technology will, when used correctly, because there have been instances where Land Rovers and things have gotten stuck because people have just barreled through them, not using the correct techniques. Which, yeah, you can get into an awful lot of problems very quickly and not trying too hard. But anyway, I think that's why I want to wrap this piece of conversation up. What I want to go on to now is the state of UK roads at the moment. And do you know what? Some of the state of our roads at the moment, how potholed, pitted, rutted. I think I discussed this in another Swacecast a little while ago. I'm bringing it up again. It's so bad. The Sicklesmere Road into Bury St Edmunds from where I live in Great Wellneatham, that's had some monster potholes on it, that to a point there have been a couple of times where we've practically had to slalom. Traffic's had to slow in both directions because the potholes are so deep. And I'm pretty sure I actually got another slow puncture on the Honda before I traded it in from hitting potholes. And I'm pretty sure it got, no, it didn't get its first one. It got its first puncture from a nail in the tyre. That's what led to the rears having to be replaced. I remember now. But there have been places in Suffolk, just Suffolk, never mind the rest of the country, where there have been cases where 10, 20 people have been victims of potholes in hours. And it's not like that does a tiny bit of damage. There was an incident, was it in Oxford? Guy on a moped hit a flooded pothole because it was flooded. He couldn't see it, understandably so. Fell off his moped and needed stitches on his chin. Which is just shocking. The only time I want to hear about someone on a motorbike or a moped having an accident on the road and needing having stitches is because they've been an absolute tit. I don't want it because they've just been trying to go from A to B. And as much as it's proving that a lot of these SUVs can't actually do half the stuff they're supposed to be able to do, the amount of damage they're suffering, is also a case of there's a lot more traffic on the roads than what they were ever built for. Which is just a thing. Population grew, economic wealth grew, ability to purchase cars and things grew, cars have gotten bigger, people have gotten heavier. Simple physics. But now, more lorries going places, sat-navs taking people different routes they wouldn't normally go, electric cars weighing so much more that at some points you can argue that with some electric vehicles on the market, with how much they weigh, that's equivalent, they're attractive, their gravity, tractive, downwards, whatever the right physics description is, the sheer force on the road is the equivalent of 2 or 3 cars. And that might be okay if it's 1 or 2. But say, for example, the Kia Niro electric, with its weight disadvantage, with it having the batteries and things, I wouldn't be at all surprised. I don't have the numbers to hand, it's just a car I've pulled purely from my head. But that has got to weigh so much more when the normal petrol one was available, rather than, let's just take the normal hybrid. It's got to weigh so much more than its conventional its conventional fueled sibling, my Swace weighs so much more than its conventional fueled sibling. Because of the battery. Couldn't find third there for a minute. It's just like, you know, sometimes for every 3-4 of these hybrid electric cars, you're probably the equivalent of, from the 90s, you've probably got the equivalent of 2 or 3 Volvo estates going over. You've probably got the equivalent of 4 or 5 of those big old Volvo estates going over it. You know, and then there's this constant, well, there's no money, there's no money. It's like, well, where is the money? I know this is going to vary, this has got danger to go into politics, and I'm going to try steer clear of it as much as I can. But there is also a political element of, well, where is the bloody money? You know, Suffolk have put my council tax up by the maximum permitted this year. So they've put the council tax up 5%. I only got a 3% raise this year. Inflation's running at 3.3. So I've had a net pay cut for the 3rd year in a row. So what am I supposed to do about it? And they can't claim there's no money, and yet now UK government's apparently going to have the biggest budget surplus it's had in years. But like, I don't know how well it shows in the site, shows out the corner, out the camera. This road I'm on in Bury, Newmarket Road, it's been patched. The patches have been patched. And they've patched the patch, the patch, and then they've patched the patch, the patch, the patch, the patch, the patch. It's bloody ridiculous. There is no other description for it. It is bloody ridiculous. You're brave in the Range Rover Evoque with an L plate. And it's a 10-year-old car now, but still. No, it's not 10 years old, that's a 66. 9 years old. I put it back into first too early. Oh well. But UK roads shouldn't be in the state they're in. And I would say that for a large part, a lot of UK manual workers, so plumbers, chippies, builders, brickies, people who work on the roads, are some of the best skilled in the world, and did for a long time have a lot of respect. But at the same time, if they're not being given the budget to do what they need to do, and they've got to do more with less, you can't expect the same quality. I probably couldn't have, but this car, this Volvo, when it was new, probably was a £35,000 car with everything that's on it. If I went to go buy a £35,000 car now, I would get such a little amount for my money, and some of it is just simple inflation, simple economics. You know, the world goes round, blah blah blah. And yeah, no, I get it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I get it. But at the same time, you know, there's only so much more people can cope with things going up and costing this and that. But then it's also at the top of the tree. Everything seems to be getting skimmed off. So I know it's dissolved into a sort of an almost nonsensical political where's the money rambling, but British roads are just... they're just... If the British public is content with slapdash, then fine, that's your own fucking fault, I would say. Excuse my language, but it is your own fucking fault if you can be content with that. Oh shit, it's not my old landlord, is it? No. Phew. So I thought that was my old landlord. We didn't leave on very good terms. Sexist pig of a man that he was. He's... So as customary, this video is finishing off with me grabbing my lunch for today. So we'll see some more Volvo on this channel. I suppose the other thing which I will touch on in the video, when I do the review video of this car. Do you know what? For a long time, I just never thought I was gonna. It's something my dad said about when he got his XC40. He just never bothered looking at Volvo because he just thought he wasn't ever going to be able to afford one. And I have to completely agree. I'm absolutely bowled over by it. And I've even got a Thunderbird seat. Look at that. Anyway, that's the end of this video, this rant, what have you. End of this Swacecast. Drive safe, look after yourselves, and I will see you next time.